Say 70% of international ventures fail due to cultural differences. To know how to navigate or how to relate to someone who has a different cultural background. We were hidden in a truck. We found someone who would smuggle us over the border, and we went all the way down to Greece. And in Greece, we went to the German embassy in Thessaloniki, and the German government, West German government, ended up helping us to go to West Germany.
That is incredible. Yes. I mean, we have this whole refugee crisis right now in Germany, the whole different nature, but this is actually a German being a refugee to German or claiming asylum to another part of Germany, which is crazy.
Welcome to the Westbound Podcast. My name is Matthias Oertzen, founder and managing director of the Oertzen Group. Each month we bring you international business leaders to share their personal and professional journey in North America. Thank you for spending time with us. And now let's get to it.
I'm very excited today to speak to Anke Jahn. She is the president of Mind Your Culture, LLC. She's an intercultural coach, and I'm excited to explore together with you about her progression, professional career, and company. Anke, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We just got back from a very nice lunch together, which I very much appreciate, and I'm very excited to hear about your life personally a little bit. We explored at lunch. There's quite a story there.
Yes, there is.
And at the same time, obviously, your profession, your company, and how that maybe also intersect with our clients. So maybe we get going with the personal stuff a little bit.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, my name is Anke Jahn, and I'm originally from Leipzig, which is former East Germany. And I think this is what kind of makes me unique in a sense with my experience that I had having grown up behind the Iron Curtains. And I lived about 2 years in Heidelberg, which is West Germany. I, after that, lived in England for a couple of years, and then I came to the U.S. So I've been in the U.S. now for over 25 years.
25 years, yeah, and several different stops in the U.S. We'll talk about that later. But
yes.
I mean, with all these different stops, pretty good foundation for an intercultural coach, right?
Yes, I certainly had those experiences.
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yes.
How old were you? I know you're supposed to ask a lady's age, but
it's okay.
But
yes.
how old were you when the wall fell? I think I can safely ask that.
Yes. Well, the wall fell in 89, and I was 18 years old.
18 years,
yes.
Okay. So really formative years at the time,
yes.
Yeah. And so were you able to come as the wall fell, or did you come before? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. Actually, there was this fever, that wave, where actually some people might be familiar with the refugee wave back then in 89, the summer of 89. And me and my best friend were a part of that. So we actually decided to escape and leave East Germany. We thought now or never we have this opportunity to leave, although it wasn't really much of an opportunity. We just took it.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything planned or anything. But yes, we were going down to Hungary and camped there, did vacation there. And then we had the opportunity to actually escape and leave Hungary. We went all the way down to Greece. We were hidden in a truck. We found someone who would smuggle us over the border. And we went all the way down to Greece. And in Greece, we went to the German embassy in Thessaloniki. And the German government, West German government, ended up helping us to go to West Germany.
That is incredible. Yes. I mean, we have this whole refugee crisis right now in Germany, the whole different nature. But this is actually a German being a refugee to German or claiming asylum to another part of Germany, which is crazy.
Yes.
So was this like your family leaving, or?
No, it was just me and my best friend. We just took that chance. Like I said, we thought now or never. We were just vacationing in Hungary, like so many people from East Germany. They just took the summer off and went to Hungary for a couple of days or a week to camp out. And we couldn't share any of this with our family. It was
so your family didn't know?
No. I mean, it was too dangerous even for them to know. And again, we didn't really have a plan per se. So it wasn't like we could share or say, this is what we're going to do, because we didn't know ourselves exactly.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's like two 18-year-old, I'm assuming your friends the same age, like 18-year-old girls, backpack a tent, some, what was it called? The money in the, I'm totally drawing a blank, right? That's also marks, right?
We had, the East German marks.
East German marks,
we had marks,
Some East German marks, and then, trying to get there by hitchhiking.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, kind of inconceivable if you think about it today. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yes.
Okay, so you made it to Thessaloniki, and then from there through the German embassy to West Germany.
Exactly. Yeah. The German government helped us, and they actually flew us to West Germany.
Yeah.
And then we had to find Gießen. The town Gießen was known for the refugee camps, so people, any kind of refugees, not just from East Germany, from anywhere else, really. They had to go there and register, and we ended up at Gießen at the refugee camp and did all the paper stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Tell me, you talked about this at lunch, and I thought that this was like crazy to me. I remember coming to the States, and it was a culture shock. I mean, coming here and seeing all that, it really felt like a movie for probably 18 months or so, right? And you mentioned something like that Germany was really like this for you. Western Germany was like that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, especially as an interculturalist, people think that my experience from Germany to the US would be the biggest culture shock, simply because of the distance. But the biggest culture shock I've ever had was actually going from East to West Germany.
Wow.
And the surprise there for me, and I'm sure for other people as well who hear about it, is because we, East and West Germany really was just divided for about 40 years, but we speak the same language, the same food and everything.
Right.
But I could not relate to people, and they couldn't relate to me. Just things they were talking about, and I just had a really hard time. It was a culture shock I had. I had a hard time in West Germany.
Absolutely. I can imagine. I mean, I think the DDR, which what it was called, was always often described as kind of gray, like the the buildings and the people,
the mood, the air, was very industrial, very polluted.
Yeah.
And everything was just, if you have to describe East Germany in one word, it would be gray.
It would be
for
gray.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So for all the proponents of socialism out there, I know capitalism has its issues, but, anyways, not going to go there today. No. It's not a political show. Yeah, exactly. Keep telling us about how you got from, so you're 18, you made it to Western Germany.
Yes.
What happened?
What happened? Well, we actually ended up, I actually ended up in Heidelberg, and that was they had their first refugees in Heidelberg, and there were about 100 of them. They had an old building that was empty, so they just, the 2 buses full of refugees that arrived in Heidelberg, and they put some bump bags in there, and we stayed there for quite some time until we actually got established with a job and things like that.
Yeah. So did you do like an apprenticeship, or you went back to school, or?
No, I did an apprenticeship actually in Leipzig, although I didn't finish it because we left.
Yeah.
And it was as a furrier. I made fur coats, and today I'm a vegetarian because of that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So I knew that was not the area I wanted to continue.
Yeah.
And for us, we were so afraid that because in the East we've heard about homelessness and people, we heard all this propaganda. Not that we believed it, but we certainly were scared. How are we going to survive?
Right.
How are you going to figure out life in the West?
Right.
Especially being so young and not knowing anybody. It's
right.
not like we had family there.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how that makes you feel today. Because, don't you hear propaganda everywhere nowadays? And I often feel like, as someone who has immigrated to the United States, even from family or friends at home, I hear certain things like, no, that's not how it is in the United States,
Yes.
or no, that's not true. Or I hear American friends talk about Europe or Germany, and No, that's not true. It's,
yes.
yeah,
But I think today is more the ideas people have is more for movies and things like that. For us, it was a very different
straight
story.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we were afraid we're going to end up on the street, what's going to happen. So we're really fearful. So the idea of studying, no, we need a job, we need to work. So that was our idea. So first job that was offered to me was in a Druckerei, printing company.
Like printing company, yeah.
So I worked there for a little while, and then I ended up working in the family as a nanny, as an au pair, because I wanted to get that experience because I knew I kind of wanted to leave Germany, and I ended up as an au pair going to England.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's. I mean, the bravery you must have taken to, take. With an 18-year-old friend, trust some truck driver, I mean, and then make it there, and then just kind of carry on, right? It's really a kind of a string. That would be the German way to say it, roter Faden. I'm trying to think of it's like something that's reoccurring in your life. Which is interesting. Yeah.
I would say we were very young and naive, and that helped.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If you were more mature and really think about it, sit down and think about it, I don't know if we would have taken that risk, because we knew even at 18 that we were risking our lives.
Sure. Excellent. So then you go from Western Germany to England, another culture shock, right?
Yep.
Or a lesser culture shock, I guess. Yeah.
A little bit less,
Yeah, exactly. So you lived as an au pair within a family?
Yes. Yeah. Interestingly enough, with an American family.
Okay.
So they were in the service, so they were fairly new in England. So it was kind of fun because with the American family, I explored England with them together, which was kind of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So they, so you got to see a lot of the countryside and different things. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. So I was 2 years in England with this family, and then met a gentleman over there in England, and through his work, we came over to the U.S.
You're the perfect, and this just comes to me, you're the perfect guest for a podcast called Westbound, because you're just progressively going more west as we're talking. So,
from very east to very west. Yeah, you're right.
So, and then you learned English there, I'm assuming, too, right? That's
probably in England, we didn't have, we had some English lessons in East Germany, but it was very minute and just in the afternoons and very elective. So we had really more Russian in school than English. So I didn't speak any English when I went to England, which was one of the reasons I wanted to go, because I knew English was the language to speak if you want to do any kind of international business or international travels.
Sure.
So I took that opportunity really to learn English when I was with the American family, which was really great because kids are great to teach you a language,
Yeah.
I was reading children books, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
And the kids were great to teach me English. They loved it.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, that's amazing.
Usually the adults have all the answers, but this way it was kind of turned around so the kids could teach me something, so they loved it as well.
Yeah, and then I have 3 young kids myself, and they're, talking about time slowing down, they have infinite patience, if it's something that they want to do, like read a book, or, now if it's something I want to do, of course I don't, but very cool. Then how did you make the jump across the big puddle? Like, how did you get to the United States?
Yeah, well, it was really more or less... more than anything, it was curiosity. I always wanted to come and see America because we've heard so much about it in the East. So really, it was more or less curiosity. But it was through the job, through the gentleman that I met in England, that we came over to the U.S. So that was the initial move that we made over to the U.S.
Interesting. And I thought you brought up something interesting is the curiosity got probably even greater because someone didn't allow you to learn about it, or so I can assume like movies or music were probably sought after and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, most of the things that I knew about America was really through the movies. And then obviously the propaganda we had in East Germany, which I said, we didn't believe in,
Right.
but I knew I wanted, after all these conflicting things that I heard, I want to go and make up my own mind.
Find
I
out
want
for
to
yourself.
see for myself
Yeah.
and really want to experience America
That's so cool.
through my own eyes.
Yeah. That's really, it's, I'm sure you've done, as an intercultural coach, I'm sure you've done all kinds of self-assessments for yourself, but I bet your courage you score very high on. To take this kind of a journey is really impressive, yeah.
Or naivete. one of
A
them.
bit of both. It's not bad. I think they go hand in hand.
Yes, you're right.
Very cool. That's great. And so you come to the States. Where in the States did you spend some time?
Yeah, my first year was actually Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually north of Milwaukee was my first year, and I met a wonderful American family there. I'm actually still very much connected. I always say it's my American family, and they say I'm their German daughter. So it was my first year, and then I went down to Texas and then to Atlanta.
And then to Atlanta. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So seeing a little bit actually of each of
Yes,
or
yes,
lots of
yes.
different regions, I guess.
And we talk in the intercultural world. We, people tend to think of national cultures, which obviously is a big topic, but there's so many regional cultures or company cultures.
Right.
You can dice culture in many different ways.
Yeah.
U.S. is so big, which is a lot of foreigners actually underestimate how large this country is. And certain regions have their own little flair and culture as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have that in Germany. We talked
That's
about
true, yes.
you're from a region in Germany where there's very strong dialect, and there is many different dialects in Germany, and there's amongst the different states, so to say, within Germany, there's a lot of cultural differences, and then here we're talking about a country that Germany is the size of Texas, so quite a bit larger and lots of just coast to coast differences, right? And then the middle is completely different.
Yes,
too, so,
and the South, certainly the South is very different than like the Big Apple or California.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So do you think that experience, having grown up the way you did, and all the way up until 18, do you think that's really impacted your decision to become an intercultural coach?
I think so. I didn't realize it at the time, but with all the transformation and change and adaptation I had to make to adjust and acclimate to a different environment, is certainly something that I take with me when I coach my clients or if I teach a class, what it really entails to do that. So you have to really help someone else, you have to have that experience yourself to really understand people that are going through that. If they move to a different country or if they have to work on an international team, how do you deal with people that really think differently than you do, even though you don't understand it? But there is a difference, and you really have to adjust and be really in tune. You have to put your radars up and really be aware that people might just think differently or act differently. And it's not a good or bad thing, it's just different.
Yeah.
But we have to develop a sensitivity to that in order to understand and be able to relate to each other.
Yeah.
So definitely I learned a lot without intention really, or preparing myself for this. But kind of the stars aligned where my education and my personal experiences just it was a perfect storm to create my company and work with international teams.
Yeah, excellent. And how does someone decide to become an intercultural coach? I think we've all had our unique ways of how we ended up in our chosen professions. How does that happen? What happened?
Yeah. Well, for me, like I said, I always was curious about why people do what they do. Human behavior fascinated me. And it still does. You always learn. You're never done learning when it comes to human behaviors, right?
For sure, yeah. Moving target.
Yes. So I decided to study psychology. So I went to school here in the U.S. I started here in the U.S. and studied psychology, got my master's. And learned a lot, and I worked in this field for quite some time as well. And then really more or less by accident, I switched over into coaching. And it is a really good fit for me. Coaching is a little bit different. There's some overlap, but it is very positive and forward moving. So you get people that are successful, that are ambitious, and they know what they want, and they want to take their life and their career to another level. And I can help people really with that transition. So that is what, for me, it was, like I said, more or less an accident that I switched over into coaching, but I learned that this is a really good fit for me. I really like that. And so I got further education and got my board certification as a coach. And then obviously you take some classes and do your own research, and also from my own experience that you have a niche, you focus on a certain topic in coaching because there are many types of coaching.
Yeah, so you have a coaching practice as well as the intercultural piece, right? They're two separate things, right?
Well, it's one company, yes, sure. But we provide different services, the one-on-one coaching, if it's topics on culture or simply topics on leadership. So the beauty about coaching is you can really zone into that one particular person. It's very, very personalized. You meet the person where they are, if there are culture topics in there or not. At the end of the day, it's kind of all combined anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So oftentimes culture comes up, but it doesn't always have to be, or it doesn't always start out to be.
Yeah.
So we do the one-on-one coaching, but we also do intercultural training and workshops, either for expats that come here the first time they come to the U.S. From anywhere really in the world, for them to learn the American culture, but also the American business culture. So it's not just the fun things to do and to see here, but also how do you communicate with people at work? How do you relate to Americans? Because there really is a difference. So we bring awareness to the table. We bring awareness to expats that come here so they're better prepared. And they can easier acclimate and be faster in their productivity to have an impact on the organization when they're here. So that's expat services. We also work people that may have been here for a long time, or international companies that have multicultural teams. They need some help for people to work more effectively together. So we have workshops around that, either culture specific or general. So yeah, we have those trainings as well.
Do you see your clients being mostly proactive about this, or do they call you when the proverbial bleep hits the fan, or when do you usually see your services being requested?
Yes, we're seeing both now.
Okay.
Although I still think there's a lot of room for companies to recognize the importance of culture in an organization. Oftentimes people call because there's a problem, or they see a challenge, or they see inefficiencies, they see frustration, they see misunderstandings, sometimes conflicts. It can escalate to high turnover, to lawsuits. I mean, we've seen it all. It can really escalate. It really has a hardcore bottom line effect on the organization. But more and more companies are realizing it now to give their expats some culture support when they send them overseas. So it's good to see that that's happening now. So we see both.
You see both, okay.
Yes.
It's interesting. I read this book a few years ago. I can't think of the name, but it talked about, I think it was leadership, and then it was one other trait, and the whole book was arguing that, if you were born with a leadership trait of a 2, you'll never be an 8. And if you're born with a leadership of an 8, you can maximum increase your leadership ability to a 9.
Okay.
That's what this book was arguing.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it was Strength Finder 2.0, one of these books.
Yes.
And I don't know which one it was, but has that been your experience? Like how much can you move the needle, so to say, on an individual? I mean, given that they are interested in changing.
Yeah. I don't ever put parameters around people. I think I'm very optimistic. It's really what you want to get out of coaching is what you're going to get out. If you want to move from a 5 to a 7, you can. If you want to move from a 3 to a 12, you can. So it really is how much you're going to put in. So I would never put a parameter around someone. You can only move
sure.
2 points.
So you've seen people like actually make leaps and bound changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. In many different ways. Oftentimes I work with people on the business side. So you coach them for leadership, or they may have gotten a promotion, or there's maybe difficult conversation, conflicts on the team, whatever the topic might be, or culturally for sure. So you can work with them on, but if they're really invested, there are a lot of aha moments, there are a lot of transformations and insights that can happen that also changes their personal life. And that is where I get excited about to see. I actually had a couple of times where, even though I didn't know the spouse, but after coaching the spouse, thanked me for coaching their spouse, because they have a better version of their spouse at home.
Isn't that so interesting how we just need to untangle ourselves, to really, the spouse, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, I can imagine that specifically with the expats, for example, that's probably a key piece to them actually sticking, right?
Yes. I love working with families because you have to include the whole family. If someone moves overseas, they rarely do it themselves. So if they bring their family with them, actually the spouse who comes along with it tends to have a more difficult time, simply because they don't have the purpose of going to work every day. They don't necessarily have that network, that social outlet, like someone who actually comes here to work in an organization. So I think it's very important that the family also gets to support either the spouse, sometimes their kids as well, and for them to have that support, certainly at the beginning, for them to help to understand, trying to navigate these differences. And there are lots of differences. A lot of people underestimate, especially coming from Europe over to the US. There's oftentimes people think, it's really not that it's the same, but people think they know America because they've seen the movies. They may have been to Florida on vacation, but moving here and living here and working here is very different.
Yes. I always say too, within our group, it's like, don't overlook our differences because of our similarities.
Exactly.
It is so easy to think we're alike, and they're very different cultures.
It can be a trap of similarities. If you go to Asia, you will expect differences, and you will prepare yourself. But coming from Europe to the US, there is sometimes little, if at all, any preparation.
If you were to say like the top 3 differences, what are some glaring ones?
The glaring ones, I think communication style is a big one, certainly for German expats. We have a very direct communication style, which doesn't always land really nicely here. So I work with expats kind of to soften things up and have some tricks that we, for example, small talk. I teach a lot of my expats. Certainly Germans don't like small talk, but I always say it's not about the conversation, it's about building the relationship. Just having a few minutes and talk with someone, to connect with someone. Show some interest in them and what makes them tick. That builds the relationship, and that's really what you need. So even though it's very uncomfortable for many Germans to do it, I had to learn it. It was uncomfortable for me.
Really, I actually love it. I don't know why. Like from the very get-go, it's just my personality.
It's your personality.
I just really fit here extremely well. Like I love the whole. You meet someone in an elevator and it's a little bit of chit chat. Like this, just a general notion is always everybody's friendly, and I know someone has no. It's really just but you're encountering someone. You're not just standing in an elevator, not saying anything to each other.
And I love it too. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't know how to do the small talk. And Germans tend to, if they do talk, they tend to go deep. It's more of a deeper discussion. We have no problems talking about politics, but that's not part of small talk. So there's an art to it, to do small talk.
That's very true. I have actually, when I go back to my family in Germany now, there's a couple of times where I'm like, wow, this is. I have nothing to do with you as foreign policy. Don't hold me responsible. It's very direct. Like, hey, what's going on? this kind of thing. So
yes.
very interesting. So the loaded question: what is culture?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, there are many different definitions out there. I always say it's a set of shared values and traditions and norms. Another way to say it is this is how we do things around here, especially when you talk about corporate culture. It's easy to sum it up in that sense. This is how we do things around here.
I like that. That's good. Yeah, absolutely. It's like everybody, you hear the Oertzen group way, right? Or the mind your culture way, right? Like you hear those kind of things. My wife works for a large German company and they call it, the company way,
Yes.
So it's interesting.
It's kind of an identity. It's kind of,
And that can be good or bad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what clientele do you serve? Like, is there like a certain industry focus that you have that you kind of, did you get in there by default? How did that work?
Yeah, the beauty about my work is it doesn't have to be industry specific. I really work in a lot of different industries, but by default, I ended up working quite a bit in the automotive industry.
Okay.
So that tends to be more of my focus, but I also get drawn into other projects that has nothing to do with automotive.
Okay, makes absolute sense, right? Like much like a CFO or an HR manager, it's very, it doesn't really matter the industry really.
I mean, it's good to have some understanding of the industry, but it's not really necessary. It's not. I can still work with someone even though if I don't understand, because coaching is about people. Culture, it's about people. It's all about relationships and people, and not so much about the actual trade of their work.
Is at least like the large OEMs? Are you working more with the tier ones? Or?
Yes, all of the above. There's several OEMs and also tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. Yes.
Yeah, very interesting.
And consulting companies and anything around that.
Yeah. And so is this individual coaching mostly? Is this in a group setting? How can you, like, how would a project go? Like the client hires you, kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. I get a lot of requests for individual coaching. So let's say you have someone on a team that may be a little bit rough around the edges, maybe need to kind of bridge the gap culturally a little bit. They may call me and say, can you help this individual just to gain more insight and understanding and how to relate to people working on the team. So it's one-on-one coaching for sure. But also companies, for example, I had a company just the other day calling me and say, we have 50 people locally. They're actually in Houston. And we have 17 nationalities represented on our
so
team.
Cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yes. And because it's a German company, the headquarters is in Germany. And it's not so much those 17 nationalities that have a challenge. It's more how do you communicate with the headquarters?
With the headquarters, yeah, exactly.
And that is something we see quite often because the exposure, the headquarters in Germany, the exposure is not there. They don't really understand how things work and operate here in the US.
That's what we talked about this at lunch also. It's like the culture gap doesn't seem to be getting smaller, does it? I mean, it's about the same or maybe drifting apart, but it's this has been ever since I've been here, and specifically in what we do for work, it's been a recurring theme that's very difficult to have that communication between the headquarter and between their subsidiary. Yeah. Interesting. Sure. Can you give us some examples of some kind of assignments that you worked on that started quite difficult maybe and then really turned into some great success?
Sure. I'm thinking of one gentleman that I coached. A company said that they could use some help. This was a German gentleman that worked here in the US. He's been here for quite some time. I think he was here already 10 years. But he still kind of had some troubles with people at work on his team. Now, the interesting thing is they liked him on a personal level, but they had a hard time working with him.
Interesting.
To the point that there was some sabotage where they actually sabotaged some of the projects. And this is where they said, okay, we can't have that.
So do you usually have, I'm trying to envision it in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you either have someone who's extremely self-aware and quality about themselves, which is probably not the case all the time, or you have someone else, his boss or HR or someone calling you, right? And now you're encountering an individual that has been told to be in an intercultural training, right?
Well, I have one criteria before I take on an assignment, and that is the individual would want to do it.
Good.
You cannot force anyone. I don't coach anyone if they don't want to be coached.
Yeah.
Because coaching is transformation and change. And if you don't see that you have to change something or that you want to change it, I don't see change as a negative. I just see change as a growth opportunity. It's not that what we're doing is bad. It's just we need to adjust it and do it a little bit different to get better results. So it's not a negative. It's not they're wrong or they're it's just we all have our ways of doing it.
They may not know better.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like your prism of life, right? It's
we all have it. We all have our blind spots, and we all have areas that we can grow and develop. So if someone is willing to do that, that's when I work with you.
Interesting. So you have probably a pretty extensive discovery process before, right? To kind of figure out, hey, this is the situation that I will be encountering before I step on their campus or in their office.
Yes, a company may call me, but I say I want to talk to that individual first.
Interesting.
So I always meet with them, virtual or in person, and get a feel for it. What is it? What do you want to get out of coaching? What do you want to work on? And that helps me to decide if I'm going to take on that assignment or not. And most of the time, people do want to do that because people know, I can be better at this or can learn additional things. So people tend to do that. But this individual, actually, I was talking about because he was still set in his German ways. Right. He said, he was willing to do it, he said, but only because you're German, because you get me.
Okay, that's an additional benefit of working with you. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it was quite, even though he was pretty much set in his ways and he bumped into people quite a bit, it didn't take much time once we talked about certain scenarios and for him to realize that things are just different. It's not right or wrong. Culture is not right or wrong. It's just different. And you don't have to change who you are. You have to be truly authentic. But just changing some minor things, the way you approach someone can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And this is what he learned. He learned that those little things was actually hurting him and the relationships at work, and just did some minor adjustment, and it changed everything. I mean, even to the point, and this is actually his wife thanked me because he was less stressed. He came home more relaxed and more satisfied with work. But also he ended up getting a promotion because he was doing his job really well.
Right.
I mean, and this is what I see a lot. People are experts in their trade, in their work.
Yeah.
But relational is where the gaps are.
Yeah.
So for him, because he did such a great job, he knew his work really well, they couldn't promote him because he kind of was bumping heads with people.
Right.
But once he overcame that, then he ended up with a promotion.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a side effect from the coaching, because that was not really intentionally the purpose. That wasn't the goal of the coaching, but that was kind of what came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once he learned, how Americans take and minor things he can adjust.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's, in our business, which is executive recruiting, I often ask a client when they want to hire another executive, specifically like general management or leadership roles, not functional ones, but the top ones. like you usually have, the accountant financial types, you have the engineering operations types, or you have the sales account management types. And we all are brought up in one of those, and you will fall back to those tendencies.
Sure.
Like I'm definitely on the sales and account management, so I know of my weaknesses, and I surround myself with people on the financial side, for example, very strong CPA, because I know I'll fail if I don't, give this attention, right?
Yes.
Do you see issues with one out of those three particularly, or do you see the same, that like maybe, for example, we have a lot of engineering clients. Like, do you see that? And I have encountered absolute, I would say, top of the world experts. I mean, I don't think there's few people in the world, they're probably top 5 of knowing about a certain injection molding process, right? But on a I wouldn't even say leadership level, but like on a connecting with other people level, there were serious lacks that you could see right away when like, this is going to be a real problem for you.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that, maybe the financial types have more issues, or the engineering types have more issues, or the sales account management types have more issues, or kind of across the board, you see different people with different challenges?
Kind of across the board. It really depends on your personality and also your curiosity in general. If you're open in learning and wanting, be curious about someone else and someone else's culture, regardless of your career, that is, it sounds so simple, but it's really curiosity. That's what makes you successful. So it's really on a personal level, how interested you are in learning about cultural differences, not so much about your actual career. However, having said that, you're absolutely right. There's certain careers. We also say there you can even say it's a certain culture among engineers. It's a certain mindset, right? They're very, very technical. And with that, by default, is the less focus on people. But I don't want to lump them all together and say that's how engineers, and I know you weren't doing that.
No, I agree. And I 100% agree with you. Like, it's because I've seen some that completely made themselves, like, almost rose above that tendency.
Yes.
Like, to where I'm like, wow, now you are extremely good in this, plus you got this piece. That's pretty unbeatable, whereas the sales account management type will always be lacking that technical stuff. Yeah.
And that's the thing I would recommend some companies before they send someone overseas to take a look at not just their skill set, what they have. Yes, they might be a real expert in their field, but do they have what it takes to be open enough and curious enough to make some adjustments in culture? This is more important than actually the actual trade and skill set that they bring.
Do you believe in assessments? Like, are you heavy on assessing people and measuring against assessments?
I'm not a big fan of assessments.
Okay.
We certainly have assessments and we can use them, but I know that most people or companies, they know where the pain points are. It's really more in a conversation and asking some questions that I flush things out. Where are the gaps? So I do it more in a conversation than actually have an assessment.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. It's that's something that we come across all the time. Where someone would like to do some kind of testing, but then I also see that it's really not speaking of culture, there is no testing culture within the company. So it's like now you have one data point, where you have 400 employees, you need 399 other data points to know what to do, right? Have you worked with greenfields before, like complete startups, like where I'm assuming it's like super high pressure?
Yeah. Not much, simply because they don't necessarily see. So someone is brand new and forming a company, they don't really see the impact of culture yet. I usually work with companies that are mid-size or large size, that I always say they have to fall on their noses a few times before they realize, culture is important. So
same with recruiting, by the way.
Yes, I can see that. Yes.
Yeah.
So not so much with startups. Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I cannot. It's just I don't get requests from them because they don't necessarily see the need of it yet.
I would think there's a huge need there. We work with a few greenfield startups, right? And this should all start already in Europe, with training there and preparing people to come. And, too often we see someone being sent in as an expat that their experience has been a semester of university in the US, or, has been more times in Florida on vacation than someone else. I'm kind of making fun of it,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's not extensive, where you really pick up all the nuances and understand the country.
Yes. Like I said, some people, they are here for 10 years or longer and they still benefit. I have them in my in our cultural trainings, and they're like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Of course, that makes sense. Oh, that's what I've been doing.
Sure.
That explains it.
Yeah.
The light bulbs go on, because unless you really think about it, you may not be aware of it. Yeah. So you can be in a culture for 10 years or more and still learn something. I still learn. I've been here for over 25 years. I still learn something about the American culture.
100%. And speaking to the regional differences, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's if you spend some time in the Midwest, it's a very different. It's really fun because we have assignments all over the states. And so you get to speak with people out of the Northeast, 1 week, the next day you speak with people out of California, completely different speed, or the Midwest, right? Or I'm doing an assignment right now in South Dakota, a very different type of person than, I'm also working on a sales position in California, very different type. So it's interesting. So you would say then probably that's a constant effort, right? That coaching should really be a mindset, or a coaching should be a culture. Like, you know what I mean?
Actually, interesting enough that you say that. We actually also work on company culture topics. So when we work with companies that want to do a company culture change, right now there is actually a trend that a lot of companies want to have a coaching culture.
Okay.
And we actually have a program to teach their leaders how to have a coaching conversation. So the actual culture of an organization becomes a coaching culture. It's very different from the traditional management style to be more of a modern manager. And we talked over lunch about generational differences. The younger generation wants to be coached. They want to be developed. But how do you do that if you've never been taught? So you can actually create an environment, you can create a culture of an organization where leaders know how to have a coaching conversation, and it shifts the entire organization in a much more productive way.
Yeah, interesting.
It's incredible.
Yeah, especially with retaining top new talent who's looking for constant progression, advancement, and like you said at lunch, we talked about, we're from a generation where, you took a job, you got a paycheck, and and certainly that has evolved, but that's different now. It's a different focus right off the get-go, right out of college, and I can see that.
And you can talk about generational cultures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cultures all over.
Cultures all over. I see culture everywhere.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
I always say we all swim in culture, if we know it or not, but it's really cultures all around us. And it's kind of a mental programming, which is another definition of culture. But it's really the way we see the world, our perspectives, our mindset, our view of the world. It's really shaped by our culture. So I always say we are swimming in culture if we know it or not.
Yeah.
Also, organizations, they all have a culture if they know it or not, if it's intentional or not. Each company has a culture.
Yeah, there's all kinds of biases that we walk around with.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And there's some big ones right now that hit the news, and everybody pays attention to those. But it's almost unfair a little bit, because you have only so much time, and you have a family, and you have a profession, and you have an upbringing, right? And you have this prism, like I called it earlier, that you walk through life with, and intentionally or unintentionally, that's been formed in you, and now this is how you see the world. So it's like a conscious effort to change it, I guess. Yeah.
And again, it's not good or bad. The only thing is to be aware of it. If you interact with someone who has a different point of view, or different perspective, or different culture, or different view of the world, again, it's not good or bad. It's just having the awareness, and how do you engage with someone who is different from you, thinks differently.
Yeah. How do you define success with a coaching client? Like where you walk out and then, I mean, obviously the wife or husband calling you and saying, hey, my marriage has changed, that's pretty good, right?
Yes,
that's
yes.
Probably a real, but how would you say it's like, this turned out pretty good?
The way people feel. They feel better about themselves. They're reaching their goals. They're even exceeding their goals. There are always things that come up that they didn't really plan up front. It's having these aha moments, these insights for themselves. This is really what coaching is. Coaching is from the inside out. Training is from the outside in. So training is I give you information that you will take with you. Coaching is from the inside out. It's really to bringing what's already there, to bring the best out of you and make the best out of it. And there's a lot of self-discovery there. So for people to have aha moments and really capitalize on their strength, on things that are already there, and making some changes or some adaptation in their lives to really better their lives, to advance their career, whatever it is that they want to accomplish during coaching. I don't have any agenda in coaching other than to help you to reach your goals. And it really is a privilege for me to work with someone. I don't take it lightly if someone trusts me to sit down with me for a few months and talk about what are their struggles or what goes really well or where are their gaps, and to really take it to the next level. So it really is a privilege for me to work with people.
That's interesting. This just came to mind. So you have a psychology degree.
Yes.
You could also have people come to your office, pay you $400 an hour and have a completely different practice, right? Yes. Whereas this is more like a kind of a on-the-job kind of coaching, right?
Yeah.
Can you, what led you to go more that direction rather than go on the traditional psychology route?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I kind of stumbled into coaching by accident. I actually worked for many years for an organization. They supported people with disabilities in the workforce. So what we did is we helped them gain employment, but also to keep employment. And you coached not only that individual, but you coached people around them as well to have a supportive environment to support people with disabilities in the workforce.
Very interesting. Okay.
And there I learned the difference between counseling and coaching. Because I learned my people, disabilities, abilities, we all have them. We all have disabilities if they're visible or not, right?
Yeah.
We all have abilities and we all have disabilities. Yes. To take people where they are and what they have and capitalize on their strength. There is nothing wrong with you. Just because you don't have a certain skill set or not a certain experience doesn't mean you cannot be a productive member of society. So this is what coaching is, taking what's already there. What are you really good at? And let's use that to your advantage to advance you in your career and your life. So this is where I made that switch, the difference between therapy and counseling, because in counseling, you help people to get more stable or get out of a dysfunction.
Sure.
While in coaching, I don't think you're dysfunctional. I think you're a very individual, responsible for yourself, very strong, stable individual who just is eager to take their lives to the next level.
And you don't know how to get there, and you can help.
And I can help.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean everyone needs to have a coach, but a coach can help you to get there faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes people are not clear, okay, I have goals, I want to accomplish that, but they're not really clear what there really are, these goals. They have general ideas, but a coach can help you to identify what does it really look like? What do you really want?
Right.
It's kind of when you go on a trip, okay, we're here in Atlanta right now.
Right.
And someone says, I want to go to California.
Yeah.
So I'll have some questions. California is big. Right?
Yes.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
You want to drive per car? You want to hop an airplane?
Yeah.
What are you going to pack? How long do you want to be there? All these things a coach can help you asking questions that you may not ask yourself.
Yeah.
So you will get to your destination faster.
Very interesting. How long is usually an engagement on an individual level to see impact?
Yeah, on average, it's 6 months. People extend it for another 6 months or so. Some people start with 3 months because they're not quite sure what coaching is, and I certainly understand that.
And is it a weekly meeting or how do
typically, yes, It's weekly, an hour. Most of it is virtual that we can do, and that's why we have clients all over the world where we can coach them. Yes, yeah.
Very cool. Talk a little bit about, I kind of studied on your website, but we haven't talked about it yet. It looks like it's not just you; it's several other partners that you're working with. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yes, I have strategic partners in our company. We also have a couple of people that are specific on certain culture clusters. For example, Asian culture. I'm not an expert in Asian culture. I have some general understandings and research and things like that. If it's just about awareness, I can talk about it. But if someone needs a deeper dive into the Asian culture, I have other consultants that help me, so different clusters around the globe. And also, I have other strategic partners when it comes to company culture initiatives. So we have different projects there that we can work on.
That's excellent. Do you work only in the States, or do you work also in Germany or in Europe, or how? I mean, with Zoom, everything would be possible, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, we're located in the States, but literally we work with clients all over the world. Yes.
Yeah. And do you work mostly in person, or is it mostly by Zoom or Teams or something like that?
It's actually mostly virtual.
Okay.
Simply for logistic reasons.
Yeah, sure. Saves a lot of cost. I mean, that's for all businesses really changed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And COVID, thank goodness, has one good thing that came out of COVID.
I agree.
People got used to virtual work, and they see that it really works.
Yeah.
So I typically meet my clients in person the first time. And then we'll do it virtual.
Okay, gotcha.
Depending where they're located.
Yeah.
If someone is local, that's different. But
yeah.
What
did I not ask yet about intercultural coaching? I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I missed, but I can't think of anything to ask right now. Is there anything that?
I think what's people surprise often when I share the statistics, and that really goes down to how important culture is in the business. It actually shows, research has been done by SHRM. They say 70% of international ventures fail due to cultural differences.
That is amazing.
That is an astonishing number. It's And so companies, even though they may not fail, but there are lots of inefficiencies that it might be hard to measure. But it really is there. The impact of cultural differences, if it's not managed well, has really a hardcore bottom line effect on an organization.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if you have multicultural teams, if you have people with different cultural backgrounds, with their different perspectives and experiences, if you manage that well, it increases 35% of creativity and innovation. The key is that it has to be managed well. There has to be an awareness, and there has to be a skill set how to manage these differences and how do you engage with someone. And this is where culture intelligence comes in. Usually people say, oh, you're German, or you work with this culture and this culture. There's always an element in our trainings, there's always an element of culture intelligence. And that's the ability on how to communicate and relate to someone from a different culture.
Okay.
So you don't have to know all the ins and outs of a culture, but you need to know how to navigate or how to relate to someone who has a different cultural background. So it's really the culture intelligence. It's a skill set that everyone can learn. Certainly the leaders, any global leader, any leader that has a team that is international or multicultural, they have to develop that skill. That's the number one skill set that you need if you work in an international environment.
That's incredible.
It's culture intelligence.
Yeah, that's we work with a lot of greenfield startups, and I've seen numerous fail. Now, I don't want to say that they all had to do with culture, but they failed. So something happened there, and there was internationals involved.
Yeah.
So that's how would do you go? Have you ever done a project where you get access to the company and you get to completely map the company, where you say, okay, I see there's this individual, there's that individual, there's this individual, and if I change these things, I'm going to get to, this company is going to change gears, because I don't know if anybody ever gave you access like that, but that I'm sure that'd be a dream.
Yes, I do get, and that's, again, I see it as a privilege that I get to a view behind the scenes in organizations, that they let me in and let me see their inefficiencies or their gaps that are there. And I don't take that lightly. I highly respect that and appreciate that. Yep. It is really more through our programs that we deliver that these things flush out. I never say this person is not good or that person needs to change. It is through our programs that it naturally unfolds. Who will stay, who will go, who will adjust, who will not. Because I just get a little sliver in there and I don't know all the history. So I never go in there and tell people what to do. That would be pretty presumptuous of me.
Sure. No, makes sense.
And I truly believe in people, and people can change and people can learn. So I rather give the platform for people to do that. And you naturally either move out or further in the organization than for me to come in and tell people where they should go.
Where they should go, what they should do. Yeah, excellent. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Very interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us about coaching, about you, about the company. It's been very interesting.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about how do people find you? Your company website, do you have Twitter, LinkedIn, any of those kind of things?
I'm not a big fan of the social media, or let's say I don't have much time for social media stuff.
Yeah. We should all stay off of it anyways. Yeah.
Yes.
Except for LinkedIn, everybody get on LinkedIn, please, because we use this heavily. So
yes, I'm every day on LinkedIn. That's the one outlet that I have. And obviously our website, mindyourculture.com is our website. You can fill out a contact form there or send us an email, info@mindyourculture.com.
Nice.
And LinkedIn, of course.
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was fantastic. To everybody listening and watching, if you would please share, like, comment, we would greatly appreciate it. If you have any ideas on content that we should bring you, or any comments on what we could do better, we would certainly appreciate it. We'll hear you all, or we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.